So this is going to be a short video, just demoing my GameJam entry, Imaginate. Imaginate was created for the avant-garde GameJam, sponsored by the guys over at projectspark.org. The theme was to do something new and experimental. Uh, I think I covered both of those with regards to Spark. Um, Let me just talk a little bit about where this idea came from. So I've been creating animations in Project Spark uh, pretty much for most of the past year. It's really kind of my niche now in Spark, but something that I find really hard to do with the method that I use to create my animations is keeping the prop limit reasonable so you can actually use your characters, your custom characters and custom animations in an actual game. So I've been pondering the idea of creating a system where I can create a base model, give it animations, and create my custom character on that base model and have it play those animations on demand um, without having to do multiple frames, like create actual multiple frames in the world. So I had this idea. I was trying to think of things to do for the game jam, and then I thought actually it would be really cool to expand the idea of this system so that other people can also, create their own characters and see them come to life. So what I actually did was I said, well, I'm going to make some base models and you know create several animations for them, and then have the player create a custom character on that base model, and then be able to select animations and view them with their custom character actually performing them. So I kind of set out on this task. It was a little ambitious for 3 weeks, but I kind of have a tech demo that works mechanically for the most part. There's a few little tweaks that need to be performed, but right now the system is actually working. So for this demo, I'm going to use the controller, but you can actually use keyboard and mouse. The It's fully supports both keyboard and mouse and controller inputs. The touch has not been tested. I can't vouch for whether it performs at all or whether it performs good or bad. But both keyboard and mouse and controller have been tested, and all the controls should work. It's actually the game is optimized for controller support, so controller is probably the best system to use if you have one available. So you can see we have our base model here. Right now we only have the human model, but eventually there will be multiple models. I actually had a second model, a quadruped pup, that was based off a dog. Um, it was fully animated. It was, but I didn't have time to get it into the system and working to the standard that I wanted it to be working for the game jam. But that will be one of the first things that is added as soon as I'm able to start editing this level again. So we can actually see once we start using the controller, our menu reflects the control scheme we're using. So you can see that the D-pad would be used to select the model, but right now there is no other model, so it doesn't do anything. So we'll confirm the selection with the A button, and now we go to the socket choice menu. So you can see right now there's an indicator on the head of our base model. We currently have the head selected. We can actually use the right stick to toggle between all of the different sockets that are available for this model. So you can see we have 2 legs, 1 arm, and different pieces. So we have the hip and the lower torso, and the upper torso and the chest. That's just to allow a little bit more control over the bend of the character during animation. We also have a neck, so that the head and the neck can actually move appropriately. So if we select the head socket, with the A button, you can see we now have an indicator at the bottom that the head socket is the current socket. We still have our indicator on the head socket of our model, so we can remember which socket we currently have activated. You see at the bottom we now have a menu. If we press the right bumper, we actually go into the create new object screen. So we can use the D-pad to scroll between our current object options for that socket. So right now I only have the Codian create pack active, but eventually I intend to have every object that's in the current Spark object gallery. So whenever something new is added, there'll be a new pack. I'm going to release different create packs by theme, but eventually everything that's in the Project Spark gallery should be available for creation in the this 2D creator. So for the head, let's say we want to have our head be this swirl here. So we press A to select the object, and now we can see we're in the object edit mode. Our objects actually spawned in the world now. We can see that we still have the indicator, so we actually know which socket we are putting this object on. This just helps for positioning. You can see we have a whole different amount of options now at the bottom. So we're currently on the move option. So when we press the right stick, we can actually move our object around with the right stick. So we can actually position it closer to where we want it to be. Now if we use the D-pad, we can actually select the next option, which is scale. And it's actually left stick left and left stick right to scale up and down. So we can scale it a little bit smaller. We can actually yaw, pitch, and roll our object, and it always rotates around the center of the object. This means that you don't get the weird thing where after you yaw, the orientation has changed, so that when you do a different transform option, your object starts, doing something that you don't expect. It will always do the rotation in the direction that you expect it to do. So we actually use the left stick, left and right to do that too. So we can do our different options. And when we're happy with what we have, we can press A to confirm our current edit option. And you see we go back to the to our menu, our object menu. So right now we only have one object actually in the on the head socket. So if we press A right now, we'll actually go back into edit that object that we just had selected. That allows you to quickly, go back if you don't like how it's looking. You can quickly go back and start editing it again. Right now, the actual edit mode is not fully finished. It has the basic options, but eventually I plan on having the ability to move the objects up and down, like towards the camera and away from the camera, so you can stack different objects better. So you can like put an eye on top of a base head. I also plan on having a color picker so that you can change the color of every object. And I also, right now, I actually had a little oversight and there isn't a delete option. So the workaround right now is to go and edit that object and scale it really, really small so you can't see it, or to move it so it's off screen. But there will be an actual delete option available. So if we want to add another object to this socket, we can press the right bumper. We can go in and pick an object. And we do the same thing for this object. All the transform options are the same. I'm going to move this over here. Okay. So when we go back to this menu, you can see now we have a circle indicator that is over the object we just edited. That's actually the indicator for which object is the currently selected object. It will always be the object that you just edited. But if we actually decide we want to go back and edit a different object in that socket, we can actually press the left and right triggers to toggle between the different objects in that socket. And if we press A while said object is selected, we actually go into the edit mode for the object that is selected. So you can actually go back and edit anything that you don't like. You can keep going through. It's kind of an iterative process. So let's say we want to add an object to a different socket. So we can go back to our socket selection. And let's say we want to add something to the forearm. So we select our socket. We create a new object. Let's say we're going to put this object here. So we transform it how we want it to be. Sometimes there's a little glitch with the movement. If this happens and you actually can't move with the right stick, just go back to scale and then go back to move, and it resets itself. So we're going to line this up with our forearm. We'll select it. You can now see that the indicator is on the forearm piece that we just edited, and we can no longer edit the head pieces. This is because we're currently in the forearm socket, and the indicator only allows you to toggle between objects that are in the currently selected socket. You'll see if we actually go back, we can actually select the head socket again and scroll between the head options, the head objects. So when we're done and we're happy with what we have, we go back to this menu, the socket selection menu, and we can press Y, and that will allow us to preview our currently created model. So you can see the object goes back to an idle pose, and you can now see that for every socket that we have an object attached to, that socket is now invisible. This is so that you can just see your objects and not the base that you were creating them on. And if we press the walk, for instance, our objects that we've attached will all track their sockets appropriately. And you can see our characters actually come to life. There's currently a little bug with the arm and the legs that when you place an object on a socket that has a child socket, so for instance the forearm has a child socket of the hand, the child socket will actually disappear too when you're in the preview mode. This is a small bug that arose after testing, so I plan on going back and fixing that, but right now there's a little bit of a problem with that. But For the most part, if you're creating a character and you're filling items in every socket, everything should work appropriately. You just might have feet and hands missing if you don't actually put something on that socket. So if we press B, we can actually go out of here and go back into our socket selection mode. If we decide we want to go back and edit the head, for instance, we can select that socket. We can select an object in that socket. And you can see our character once again does its T-pose so that we can actually see the sockets more easily and we can position things on the sockets better. So you can keep going back and forward between creation and testing until you get something you really like. So right now this is kind of in a primitive state. There's quite a lot of features and models and animations that I want to add to it. I really need people's feedback on what they would like to see added. Like, what models do you want to see? Like birds and fish and different quadrupeds. Um, what animations you'd like to see for the models. So, like crouch, crawling, and what kind of objects you would like to be in creation mode. They're really the three main things I need feedback on. If you actually give me feedback, I'm probably going to get the thing that you want in this creation tool in the actual game way faster. Otherwise, I'm just going to create the things that I think are good. So this has kind of been a really short demo of how the tool works. I hope you go into the game and experiment with it. I hope that you have fun creating your own character and seeing it come to life. And well, and if you like it, give me an upvote and make sure that you're feeding back. So this was me. This was my game Imaginate. And that's all for now. Goodbye.